Hey everybody, what's up? How you doing? It's Dan back with another Moonshine Talking. This time I figured I'd talk about some movies. I'm a big movie dude. Love watching movies. It's one of my favorite things to do to wind down. I like sharing, so I figured I would share with everybody some of the stuff I've been watching lately. So I watch kind of like a mix. Some of my favorite genres is some of you will know, others if you're new here you might not. Are horror. Love action films. Just B movies of all stripes. I love all the like crazy 80s and 90s B movies, whether they're horror, exploitation, sci-fi, thriller, all sorts of stuff like that. Just straight up gore, things like that. So yeah, those are kind of my tastes. And I like a lot of mainstream stuff too, but this is sort of the stuff that I kind of like. I gravitate towards, and that's what I enjoy. So I figured I would share some of the stuff that I've not only I've picked up and added to my collection, but also stuff that I've been watching. So for a little bit there, late last month, I was on a Kumite kick, and everyone knows Bloodsport. You're familiar with the Kumite, and Bloodsport was so successful uh, for Canon that they ended up doing like everybody started popping out. It was kind of like the grunge scene and the where all of a sudden a few bands got exposure, got popular, then everybody, now they wanted to gobble up everything. When Bloodsport came out, all these directors and writers and producers and film companies all wanted their own Kumite movie. They all wanted a Bloodsport. So they all started churning these things out like there was no tomorrow. Some are good, some are not so good. Some are better than others. And the one that I saw, it was on Tubi. It was Shoot Fighter 2. And this one was great. It was a follow up, obviously, to the original Shoot Fighter. And I haven't seen the original yet. I haven't seen the first one, but the second one, what really caught my interest about it was it had William Zabka, who everybody knows from The Karate Kid. He was Johnny Lawrence. I was in Just One of the Guys. He's been in the new Karate Kid. I think it's on Amazon or Netflix. I'm not sure which streaming service it's on, but I know Cobra Kai. That's the name of it. So that shows you how much I know about it. But he's kind of had like a career resurgence. Interestingly enough, in the first movie, Martin Cove, who's a sensei from the first movie, he's in that one. But in the second one, it had him. There was another guy, I want to say his name is Michael Randolph, but I don't remember that off the top of my head. I don't really know him from anything. I think I've seen him in certain things, like he's in a lot of action karate films and stuff like that. But then Bolo Young, speaking of Bloodsport, Chung Lee from Bloodsport, he's in it. He plays like a sensei guru to these guys, to the Michael Randolph and William Zabka characters. And then in the first one of the henchmen from the first movie actually goes on to be like the criminal overlord of the organization in the second one, and he's like the big dog that's running the whole operation, and that's played by Johan or Joe Sun, which a lot of people may or may not remember, but he was Random Task in the Austin Powers the first movie in The Spy Who Shagged Me. And he's got an interesting background. He got into a lot of legal trouble with some of the awful things some crimes that he committed. He's doing a lot of time in jail. I don't know if he's been released or not, but he's got a colorful background. We'll just leave it at that. And then also what I thought was interesting was it had Brett Clark, who probably most people do not know that name off the top of their head. The best way I can describe it is it's Nick the Dick from Bachelor Party. If you remember the famous scene from Bachelor Party in the 80s, Tom Hanks, all the guys ruin the girls' bachelorette party by sending a couple of streetwalkers to go perform a live sex show for all these hoity-toity upper class rich women, and they got these trashy streetwalkers in leather and got a freaking electric vibrating wand and all sort of thing, and they start going to town on each other. It's very funny. So to get them back, they go to a strip club, And then the guys who have connections in the strip club, because one of their buddies is working there, he sets up the whole thing with the hot dog and the hot dog, and you kind of get the idea if you've never seen the film. But it's very funny. It's a very memorable scene. It's probably the thing he's most known for. But he was also in one of the Deathstalker movies. I don't know if you're familiar with Deathstalker. It's another B sword and sandal. That's actually another genre I really enjoy. But he was in one of those. He was in the fourth one, which they brought back the original Deathstalker from number one, and he was like his sidekick or like his compadre in it, and it's very good. It's a lot, the movies they kind of the Deathstalker movies they kind of go down in quality over time, but the fourth one kind of picks up when they bring back the original lead, and it's pretty good. But that's who Brett Clark is. And it's phenomenal. I know I use phenomenal a lot, but it's a great movie. It's a good fun movie to watch if you're just looking to kill some time and just chill out and just watch a brainless kung fu flick. It's just pretty wild. You get to see a final fight between Bolo Young and uh, and Joe Sun. All the guys kind of show off their karate chops, as it were, and it's a cool, fun flick. I would recommend it if you got nothing better to do and you like that sort of thing. Then it's definitely on my list. Next up, this one I picked up at a place called Vixen Video here in Tampa, and it's Gummo. Oh, it's a cult classic. It's generally considered one of the. It always makes these lists of all these disturbing movies, and it's always on these freaking the disturbing movie iceberg and all that sort. It always winds up there. To me, it's not really disturbing. It's just kind of like it's gritty and it's dark in the sense that Harmony Korine, who's the director, he just kind of cast the spotlight on this skeezy underbelly of society. He's always like focused on just like the dirt bags of the world, and this is no exception. You got all these people. I believe it's supposed to be set in Ohio, and they're all just these dirty, filthy ne'er do wells who just drift through life, and everybody's home is gross. And there was a hurricane, and it or a tornado, and it took out a bunch of people's property and killed a bunch of people. So it's kind of like the backdrop of what their lives are like. It's just surrounded by despair and poverty and dirtiness and just sleaze and scumminess. And it's all right if that's what you're into, but to me, it doesn't hold up. I remember it because I saw it when I was a kid, when I was a younger lad. My buddy who used to watch, he and I used to spend a lot of time watching movies together, and he invited me over one day. He's like, "Oh, Dan, you got to check this movie out. And you're probably gonna really love it because it's got all these crazy metal bands that are in it." And I heard Sleep in it, and the soundtrack's honestly probably more memorable than the film itself. I think other than the whole killing cats angle that they do in the movie, it's mostly just kind of like gross and kind of tragic and sad with a lot of the people, a lot of the characters in the movie. There's one scene where the one kid with just the no chin kid who was in a couple of movies back then because he's just a very odd looking person. He's sitting there huffing glue with his buddy who sits around telling all these awful Borscht Belt level hack comedian jokes, and then he winds up in a nut house, and but they're sitting there, they're sniffing glue with this woman, and she's got her kid running around, and he's pulling portraits off the wall, and there's freaking cockroaches scattering everywhere. And other than that, I mean, that's kind of gross, but other than that, it's that's pretty much like the level of high art that you're dealing with here. And some kid running around in a bunny outfit, and I know like Agents of Oblivion, they sampled it. Other bands have sampled some of the songs or some of the scenes, some of the dialogue from the movie. But by and large, to me, it's not my favorite thing. But still, being a person who loves movies and a movie collector, it's pretty cool to add to the collection. So next up, this is a pretty cool one. I also found this same time when I went to Vixen Video, The Exterminator 2. This is fantastic. This is the type of stuff that I really enjoy. Just this, it's another vigilante movie. Again after Death Wish, after the craze of Death Wish, they started churning a lot of these things out, and this was no exception. The first one's pretty good, but I think the first one kind of had a better angle that they never pursued in the second one. The second one, they just went with the straight up like street thugs, and Robert Ginty's character, the exterminator, he's just going ham on all these street people and these degenerates and criminals and whatnot. Where the first one, you had this angle where it was there was government corruption and the CIA was involved, and you almost got the sense that if they made a second one, they would kind of lean into that and try to create something out of that, which would have been a lot deeper, a lot more of a there'd have been a lot more meat on that bone as opposed to, but they just went the simple route, I guess, the cash grab or the it was simpler to just go out there and have the exterminator burning street thugs a lot, burning them to death with a flamethrower, which it's cool. It's entertaining. It's a cool popcorn flick. It's got Frankie Faison, who he's a great actor. He's been in so many different things, from The Wire to Banshee. He was in the first Maniac Cop. He's been in a ton of stuff, and just a great character actor. I've talked about him before when I talked about Banshee a while back. He's just a very underrated actor, and he's been in a ton of stuff. There was Mario Van Peebles is the main. He's the main character in the main villain in the movie, and he's running around in this outfit that you could only describe as Michelin chic. It just looks like he took a bunch of tires and he made like this quasi road warrior outfit, and it's really over the top and really bizarre. And he's like kind of like he's like a mix of like a solid gold dancer combined with somebody trying to LARP as one of the road warriors, but got his outfit out of a tire yard as opposed to going to like a freaking place that sells leather and spikes. So yeah, and it's pretty cool. And then there's the final fight scene between the exterminator and Mario Van Peebles' character, but it's highly entertaining. I remember this as a kid. I remember the guy running around with the flamethrower, burning people to death, and it was just a great movie. But again, to go back a little bit, I do think it would have been a lot more interesting. Like if they ever decide to remake this or anything like that, I would think maybe digging more into like the him becoming a vehicle for vengeance or a tool for vengeance against the shadowy organizations and the overreaching governmental stuff and all the creepy corruption and stuff like that. I thought that would have been a pretty good angle because going back even a little bit more in the first one, they do this thing where there's a state senator who he's like a chicken hawk, and he's taking a soldering iron to people's buttholes, and it's really awful. And he's just a creepy fella, and he ends up getting what he deserves in the movie. But I think that's kind of where it starts leading down that road of all the, where it's not as hunky dory as you might think. And then you probably tie that into like 80s Reagan America and that sort of thing. I'm sure there's a whole thing going on there. But yeah, The Exterminator 2. That's another killer one to check out. And then finally, I've been out shopping for new stereo equipment because my boombox is shit in the bed. Uh, the Lord Humongous did a number on my speaker. I said that I've told the story already, but I'll tell it again. Lord Humongous CD did a number on my speaker, one of the speakers. The Morton Red, while it was down, started kicking it, and then I was listening to Midnight, and they pretty much dropped the bomb on the rest of the speaker. So now the speaker's kind of trashed. It works at low levels, but it doesn't work at higher volumes. So I got to get a new one. I got to get a new stereo setup, but I need to find something with CD, tape deck. I have a record player, but I might get something that combines all of them, and then get some cool speakers that you really can that'd be pretty cool and worth buying. But I was looking around because one of my local record stores sells vintage equipment. They didn't really have what I was looking for, but as I was walking around, they had this sitting like somebody had just left this, and for 10 bucks I could not resist Shocker. I didn't have a copy of this. I love this movie. When I was a kid, when it first came out and the original poster, I used to sit there trying to sketch it and replicate the artwork on the movie poster. Never really did a good job. I'm not the greatest artsy type in the world, but I tried, especially more when I was a kid. I still doodle and sketch a little bit here and there. But yeah, this is a killer one. I think it's based around a serial killer who goes around killing families. A guy, his name is Horace Pinker. Pinker. It gets revealed. This is Mitch Pileggi. I think this was his first major acting role that he got in America, and then he went on to do X Files, and he's been in a ton of stuff since then. A great character actor. Peter Berg is the protagonist. Am I saying that right? But he's the hero of the movie. He plays this football star who he I think what happens is that he gets a concussion at football practice, and then he develops like these premonitions. So he has a premonition dream about Horace Pinker killing his family. So he's able to he when he finds out that this has actually happened in reality, he's able to kind of like figure out where he is, and they track him down, and then he kills a bunch of cops, and he goes on a rampage and disappears, but they find out who he is. Then he goes into his dreams again, and he's able to find him. They send him to jail, send him to prison. He gets sentenced to death, and then they get to the part where they're going to execute him. And I should backtrack a little bit. This is a Wes Craven film. I want to say it was like 89 or 88 or something like that. No, this might have been. Oh, that print is really small, but I want to say that's 89, 89 or 90. But between 88 and 90, I'm sure everybody knows when this came out. But yeah, they do the whole thing. Instead of a final meal, he asks for a TV, and he's also a Satanist. He practices black magic, so he performs this ritual in his cell, and somehow, some way, kind of like the suspension of disbelief with movies, he gets his hand on jumper cables. I don't know how he got his hand on jumper cables. I don't know how somebody could smuggle that to him, but I figure prison stuff like that would happen, especially if he had the means. So he's there performing a ritual as the guards are coming to get him and take him on his dead man walking stint. And he's sitting there shocking himself, and this image comes through the TV and gives him the power of immortality. So he gets executed, but he's not really dead. He has the power to possess people, which he does. And there's a great scene where they got this little foul mouthed kid who's sitting there screaming and cussing up a storm and trying to run over Peter Berg's character, and then she transfers the power to her mother, and then she transfers the power to Alice Cooper's guitar player, because Shep Gordon, Alice Cooper's manager, was an executive producer on this movie. That's how you get a lot of the killer soundtrack to this thing. Like you had Megadeth doing No More Mr. Nice Guy. Alice Cooper did some stuff. There's a bunch of killer bands on the soundtrack, and the guitar player is one of the people that takes Horace Pinker takes over. And they got Sam Raimi's in it. He plays an assistant to Jonathan's football coach. It took me a while, but I remembered his name. Peter Berg's character's name is Jonathan. And then you got Sam Raimi's the assistant to the coach. The coach is I can't remember his name, but Harry something. He was one of the arm wrestlers in Over the Top, where he's talking about this is the spark plug, and I'm gonna light him up, and then he loses to Lincoln Hawks in like 10 seconds, and he throws a temper tantrum and thinks he was cheated and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, very cool movie. And then it just kind of a little bit goes off the rails, but then it it kind of like lands the plane a little bit. It finally gets into a final showdown with Pinker and Jonathan, where they both go into TV land, and they got like a very interesting kind of sequence towards the end there. And eventually, Pinker gets trapped in TV land because the Jonathan goes through the TV explodes, bada bing, bada boom, and he's trapped. Doesn't actually get killed off, but I don't think the movie did so well, so they never did a sequel or anything. I think this was supposed to be like I think the studio kind of wanted like a more of a Freddy Krueger type character, And Wes Craven always has these underlying societal messages that he wants to tell. And this one was kind of an interesting one. He was wanting to tell a story about like the sins of the father and do they get transferred onto the son. He was going through an awful breakup. He was going through a terrible divorce. So a lot of that manifested itself in the direction of the film, particularly with the foul-mouthed kid. And yeah, he's always got some underlying, and I'm sure there was something about media and that sort of thing that he probably was a story he was trying to tell there. But yeah, just a very entertaining movie. Very cool. And yeah, so that's what I got as far as movies and stuff that I watch. And yeah, good times, good stuff. But let me know what you think. Hopefully, you enjoyed the video. Uh, if you did, let me know down below. And yeah, tell me if there's if you like these movies, if you've seen them, if there's anything, any of the characters or the actors or anything like that. I love talking about all this stuff. It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy spreading all this stuff out there and all the crazy nonsense that I do in my spare time as I whack my table. But yeah, man, as always, take it easy. Have a good one. Stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin up on impact and don't forget to breathe. Have a good one. I'll catch you on the next video. Later.